Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we're here for another poetry discussion, which will take place in the poetry discussion playlist. And I'm working diligently. I know, okay, I'm not working diligently on this, but I'm going to be separating the Bukowski poems and the Emily Dickinson poems into their own playlist. I realized in the process of discovering how lazy and inept I am, I have like 52 or 62 Charles Bukowski poetry discussions inside a 195-ish poetry discussion playlist. So I am going to bifurcate the Charles Bukowski poems into their own playlist eventually. But today we're here for So Now by Charles Bukowski. Look, guys, if you enjoy what I'm doing here, it does me a whole lot of good if you decide to hit that like button, because what it does is it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel, dropping several videos per week. I am currently on nearly day 60, I believe, and in a row. And we have poetry every Mondays on the channel. So if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting subscribe to stick around for more literature talk. So Now by Charles Bukowski. It reads as such. The words have come and gone. I sit ill. The phone rings. The cats sleep. Linda vacuums. I am waiting to live. Waiting to die. I wish I could ring in some bravery. It's a lousy fix, but the tree outside doesn't know. I watch it moving with the wind in the late afternoon sun. There's nothing to declare here, just a waiting. Each faces it alone. Oh, I was once young. Oh, I was once unbelievably young. So this poem, I think, is most able to be summed up by being about this couplet here. I am waiting to live. I am waiting to die. Um, this poem was published in 1994. Charles Bukowski died in 1994. Now, being familiar with Charles Bukowski's poetry, the idea of waiting to die was probably with him for 20 years. But this was published, maybe not necessarily written, but published the same year as his death. Probably written the same year as his death. And another thing on which I am working diligently, and you won't believe me, is the Dickinson Darkly series. And so I want to go poem by poem through Emily Dickinson. I want it to be my magnum opus here on Strip Coverlet. And I know that sounds pretentious, and I don't care. It's something I want to do right. And in doing so, I have recently been working on Awaken Ye Muses 9, which was her first poem, not first published, but earliest found poem. Emily Dickinson didn't publish much while she was alive, right? Most of her poetry is found, 1,775 poems. I think 5 or so published during her life. That poem, Awaken Ye Muses 9, is so full of life, so full of mirth, and very different from anything that we get from Emily Dickinson by, say, poem 20. And it's really sort of sad. It really is. It is disturbing to read, because Emily Dickinson was. There are people, I believe, who become so different, who are so. Okay, so there's. Okay, how can I say this? There are, okay, the bell curve of humanity peaks with normalcy, right? Got the bell curve down, right? So up here is normal people. It's you and me. Maybe you're brilliant, but here I am, right? Right in normalcy. Over here on one end are challenged people, people that don't necessarily have the tools that everyone else does, or people who have most of the tools and some tools on steroids, but they don't have the tools to communicate with. Um, a lot of autistic individuals, I think, fall into that category where they've got a lot of stuff going on in their mind, but they don't have the tools to get it out. So they're challenged in that way. On this other end are the challenging, the people like, and I know if anyone is here from the realm of science, you're going to yell at me for this comparison, but Einstein, Emily Dickinson, people who say so much, Shakespeare, who say so much, whose words are transcendent, whose words are all over, whose work is so in depth, and they can communicate it. Einstein through equations, Emily Dickinson through poetry, Shakespeare in his plays and his sonnets. All of these things are communicated. But we, up here, we can't absorb a whole lot of it. And one thing that it makes me wonder on this end, the challenged end, how much do they have that they just can't communicate? It really makes me wonder, what is in there, and it's just us that can't absorb it. It's us who cannot comprehend um, their machinations. If we could, perhaps we could better foster those those thoughts. Perhaps we could better foster their reality into ours. But these people, the challenging, it's definitely us at fault. And Bukowski, part of Bukowski's brilliance is that honestly, there's only a couple phases of Bukowski in which this poem would not have fit. So, one of his earlier poems, I believe it was one of his earlier poems, I believe it was one of his first published poems, is called My Old Man. And it's about young Bukowski, young Chinaski, returning home, and his mother's hiding behind a tree in the front yard because his father has found his writing. Well, why would his writing make him angry? Why would your son's writing make you angry? Maybe you're in it, right? That Bukowski, this poem wouldn't necessarily fit with. The rest of Bukowski, yeah, man, this is right on. This is right on. Um, and what we have here in that couplet, I am waiting to live, waiting to die. It's only in that place, I think, that the last couplet, oh, I was once young, oh, I was once unbelievably young, makes sense. If you were waiting to live, you're not reminiscent on what you had been. If you were waiting to die, perhaps you are in a state of contemplation. Perhaps you are in a state of regret the things you should have done. But I doubt you're in this place. Oh, I was once young. I was once unbelievably young. I think that this is a place where I am waiting to live, I am waiting to die exists. I think that these couplets, if you can call them couplets in Bukowski's poetry, are complementary because it is not a place of total despair. It is someone. Let me see. You ever been in the middle of one of these moments in your life where you're bargaining with God, right? Oh, please, God, if this is not the case, I will be so good moving forward. If XYZ didn't happen, please, God, don't let XYZ happen. Please. Because if it didn't, you will have yourself a new saint on earth. I will be resurrected. I will be good. I will be whole. I will be holy. One of those moments. Because in those moments, those are the same moments that we're talking about here. You're thinking back to what you had been and thinking, look, God, I was pretty good most of the time. I was pretty good. But if you solve this problem, if you help me find my car keys, whatever the circumstance had been, if you help me through this thing, God, I will be so good. I will be so unbelievably good. I was good once, but I will be unbelievably good. That is the same place as this. The place where you are sort of bargaining with God is the same place that is contemplative both of the worst case scenario as well as the ability to improve. You I was young, I was once young, I was once unbelievably young is not saying I can't get back. I was once young, I was once unbelievably young is saying I remember that sprightly feeling. I have that in me. I can do that. That is here. And that sadness that I feel reading Emily Dickinson's early poetry, I don't really have that for Bukowski. I don't really get that here. I don't really get that for Bukowski, even in this poem, when knowing that he's probably months away from dying, writing this poem. In the same way, for example, a contemporary, Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury died in 1991, just 3 years or so before Charles Bukowski. Freddie Mercury, very large, very bombastic. His last his last rec- his last recorded vocals appear on the track Mother Love. And it's sad, but I think for me, it's impossible to hear those vocals and not think of the larger than life Freddie Mercury. For me, it's impossible to read this poem and not think of the gambling, smoking, always about that action boss Bukowski. Because I think that's where Freddie Mercury will always live. I think that's where Charles Bukowski will always live. And if I had to put on that spectrum, you know, there's the bell curve, maybe on the way. Here's Bukowski. Here's Emily Dickinson. There's very few of those people. There's some Bukowskis. Maybe not as poets. There's some Bukowskis. You know, one of my favorites, but there's some Bukowskis. But how much sacrifice the Emily Dickinsons of the world have to make. Emily Dickinson didn't get that life, didn't get the life that Bukowski got. That's sort of why I don't necessarily, don't get me wrong, I'm not happy to read Bukowski dying. but you feel the life that Bukowski lived. Even in these words, you feel the life that Bukowski lived. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more. And if you want to help me out with what I'm doing here, hitting the like button tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And hey, I hope to have you back for the next one.